Gloria, what do you think about the necessity of a vaccine or some such treatment? What does the tourism industry need to see? Is that it?
Thank you for having me. I think the vaccine is great and is very important, but we cannot wait for the vaccine. I think we need to have a coordination among countries so that we can have a framework where we can have testing, contact tracing, and that would allow travel to resume. We need to learn from the countries that have been very successful, not only containing the spread, but also reopening. Unfortunately, not all the countries that they were successful containing the spread had a good strategy for reopening. And when you look at cases like Greece, for instance, or Iceland, where they were very successful containing the spread. And on top of that, they have a lot of testing and contact tracing, testing on arrival, and also the protocols in place. You can see that the recovery in travel is in a great path. So here what we're missing is the coordination among leaders, the coordination among countries. Unfortunately, you see decisions being made in silos without coordination with the private sector and also without coordination among countries. And that's impacting, of course, the travel industry and millions of jobs that are being impacted. So far, 121 million worldwide. So that's what we would like to see before the vaccine is available.
Gloria, good morning. You can be very successful as a country at fighting the virus, but in a way that is very detrimental to the travel and tourism industry. I'm thinking of countries that have almost entirely shut borders or really restricted travel to and from. But from your perspective, then, what is the best outcome for you? Which are the examples that you can point to, the strategies that have managed to do both, control the virus and also allow people in and out?
Like, for instance, one case that it has been very interesting for us to follow is Iceland. Another one I mentioned is Greece. When you look at the number of cases that they had, is unbelievable. However, in the case of Greece, you can travel there. They apply a test on arrival. If you test positive, then you're isolated. If you test negative, then they allow you to download an app for contact tracing, and you can move around the country. So here, this is not a binary solution. It's not health versus the economy or health versus travel. We can have both if we have the right coordination. The problem is that they concentrate 100% of the efforts in just containing the spread, like, for instance, what we see in some countries like Australia and New Zealand, but they didn't have a clear path for the reopening, and that has been a challenge. You cannot live without travel because it's the backbone for trade and the economy, and that's going to be very painful, the recovery. It's going to be more like a U-shape than a V-shape, the recovery.
How do you think airlines have been dealing with this thus far? You know, just my personal experience in flying, I've noticed that not a lot of people were wearing masks properly in the plane. The flight attendants were hesitant to enforce the rules. A lot of rows had people sitting directly next to each other, even though you've just come out of an airport, which constantly reminds you to stay 1.5 meters apart from any other people. I mean, what are airlines doing to make things better?
We believe that wearing a mask should be mandatory in all forms of transportation. Most of the airlines are reinforcing the fact of wearing the mask. If we all wear the mask, according to the medical evidence, 92 to 96% of the risk can be reduced. So we believe the airlines have implemented protocols, and those protocols are standard. Now, if there are some cases isolated, some airlines not reinforcing that, is unfortunately, but I believe most of the airlines are reinforcing wearing the mask. Same situation with the hotels. We have implemented protocols with all the knowledge that we acquired in the middle of the pandemic, where, as you remember, we offered... Go ahead.
What about the seating? I mean, clearly the seats in most airlines now are not large enough for your average adult passenger. I mean, we all know that, right? And if you're going to sit people directly next to each other so that we're touching no matter what, is that still a good idea?
Well, the reality is that the flights are not full. You don't find flights 100% capacity. You see a lot of flights less than 50% or 60%. Now, you're right, might not be a good idea to have someone next to you, but the reality is wearing a mask, having the sanitizer, and having other protocols, the experts will tell you that that will reduce the risk. Now, not wearing a mask and having someone next to you of course, you have a higher risk of getting the spread. But here the point is wear the mask, follow the protocols, use sanitizer, and that would help you to reduce the risk. So the experts are telling us 3 components: wearing the mask, follow the protocols, wash your hands, and use sanitizer. And then the third one is the distance, as you mentioned.
Gloria, what size of industry do you think we will grow back to in terms of travel and tourism? Clearly, business travel is going to be challenged because people have seen the potential of doing things differently. Tourism also will be challenged by safety concerns and also people experiencing perhaps more domestic vacations. So what can be your expectation for the size of the rebound in travel and tourism?
Well, let's remember that before COVID, and travel and tourism contributes to 10% of the global GDP, 1 in 10 jobs. Yes, we have seen a strong domestic recovery in some markets, but to tell you the truth, our surprise has been China. The recovery, for instance, in business and MICE has been unprecedented. We didn't expect that so soon. They're having already meetings and events that we didn't anticipate, and same situation with other countries in Asia. So domestic leisure fares, family vacations, adventure culture, and then, of course, business follow. But we will see a strong recovery on business once we see a strong recovery on leisure, we believe.